In the world of high performance, the line between mediocrity and greatness is often drawn not by physical prowess, but by the power of the mind. It's the mental game that separates the champions from the contenders. Yet too many stumble in their pursuit of excellence because they overlook the critical element of mental preparation. The battlefield is not just out there on the sports field, it's within. Today I'm going to empty the toolbox of mental excellence. I'm giving you 24 mental strategies that I've not only used myself, but have seen countless performers that I've coached in various domains harness for their individual greatness. I ask that you don't just absorb these strategies, but instead begin building your own personal mental toolbox. This isn't just about imitating, it's about learning and then creating a personalized arsenal that suits your unique journey to excellence. To help with this, sign up below for the free cheat sheet summarizing each of these 24 strategies. And so with that said, let's get started. Right, so strategy 1 is to change your identity, not your behavior. Psychologists find time and time again that permanent, long-lasting, desirable change only has the best chance of occurring when people make relevant identity statements. Behavior is something we do, whereas identity is something we are. So if you're an aspiring athlete, just ask yourself and be honest here, how often do you say to yourself that you just play your sport? When I work with people as their mental performance coach, it's interesting because in our initial call, some will say, I play football, whereas others will say, I am a footballer. And you know what? Those in the latter camp who identify with their sport tend to make a lot more progress in their mental game than everyone else. Why this makes such a big difference is because it gives you self-accountability. It's a lot more difficult to look yourself in the mirror if you're calling yourself something, but then not doing all the things that are required to become that thing. It helps build your discipline, which ties into the next strategy, choosing your discipline style. Discipline is an absolute must to reach the highest level in any performance domain. But the only way that this is sustained is by sticking to a style of discipline that best suits your personality. You have two options: abstinence or moderation. Abstinence is about no wavering and complete consistency in everything that you do. So that means working out at the exact same time every day, come rain or shine. It means refraining from any junk food whatsoever. Whereas moderation is still about consistency, but with a touch of leniency. So you'll still work out every day, but you might vary the time that you do this because you can trust yourself to still get it done. You will have a big bar of chocolate in the fridge, but have the self-control to only have a couple of squares each day rather than eating the whole thing in one go. Neither of these styles is better than the other. It just depends on you as an individual. You have to ask yourself what is sustainable, but also more likely to give you long-term success and fulfillment. Irrespective of your discipline style, everyone should remain committed to the next strategy of understanding that weekends are still weekdays. Now, what I mean by this is that most people go completely off the rails on the weekend when it comes to their routines. And this means they're then playing catch up to try and get back into a good rhythm on Mondays and even Tuesdays. The biggest thing this relates to is sleep. For absolute mental sharpness, you must, and I repeat, must go to bed and wake up at the same time every single day, even on weekends. Your brain and body both need a consistent pattern of predictability in terms of rest so that they can perform optimally. Any deviation to this is going to cause you to just be off it and a bit sluggish. Yes, weekends are still a time for most people to chill and relax. That is 100% necessary. But you must treat Saturdays and Sundays like any other day when it comes to your sleep. But don't fall into the trap of thinking that you have to be a 4 or 5 a.m. riser to seize the day. No, because the next strategy is just as key, and that is to not fight your chronotype. This is the natural preference of the body for wakefulness and sleep. Your chronotype is massively influenced by your genetics, so you can't really change it. There are 4 types, and this dictates what time your body naturally wants to wake up and go to sleep, as well as what are your peak hours of focus and productivity. I'll put these on the screen, so feel free to pause and see what you are. And if you're not doing so already, look to do your toughest, most complex, or demanding tasks or work of the day during those peak hours. If you do this, you'll get more done and to a much higher standard. Next up is something to make sure that you're focusing on the right tasks or objectives, and that is to set performance intentions. So before every big performance, training session, or even work day, look to write out anywhere from 1 to 3 key performance intentions of what you actually want to achieve. These can't be vague like, I want to perform my best. No, they have to be as specific as possible in relation to key skills that you want to develop or tasks that you want to complete. Your brain is like a computer. If you give it a specific input, it will then do its best to engage in the processes necessary to create a successful output. If you think of any successful person you know in any field, you're probably going to describe them as intentional. They just seem to know exactly what to do moment to moment. And that's just because they've set very clear performance intentions for themselves. There is literally no secret sauce. They just get very clear on down what exactly they want to do or achieve, and then they cut out all the noise of everything else. To get even more granular on the specific objective that you want to achieve, you should also use if-then plans. This is one of the most effective goal setting and goal completing strategies of all time. The idea is simple. Your goal or objective is your if, and the then is your how, where, when, and what to complete in relation to that objective. Psychology professor Peter Golowitzer developed these and has found that in countless domains that your chances of goal completion can increase by 30 to 40% just by using if-then plans. So someone who says, I'm going to start working out 3 times a week is much less likely to achieve this than someone who says, if it is 5 p.m. on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, then I'll pick up my gym bag and head to the gym for a 60-minute full body workout. Again, your brain relies heavily on clear inputs, and the clearer you can be, the more information it has to then just execute. And so one last strategy on increasing this sense of intentionality and specificity is deliberate practice. This stops training sessions or practice of certain skills just becoming sessions of coasting and going through the motions. This one is a little bit more complex, so you should watch my video on how Cristiano Ronaldo implemented it throughout his career for a full account. But the core idea is simple. To accelerate your development, your practice of anything has to be intentional. Require 100% of your focus with no distractions, give you immediate feedback on your performance or execution of the skill or task, and also push you slightly beyond your comfort zone. The best way to facilitate this in any performance domain is working with a one-on-one coach if you have the means to do so, because they can help you set those intentions. You're going to be paying 100% attention to their instructions and not getting distracted. They'll also give you immediate feedback after reps, and they'll also push you further than you would typically push yourself. Alternatively, it just requires you being as clear and thorough in writing your performance intentions that we mentioned a moment ago. Now, with all this focus and intention, things can become stale quickly as you become accustomed to these things. So one thing that's really helped me over probably the last 6 months or so is having a weekly quote or reminder. It's quite common to put up quotes on your wall that inspire or motivate you, but naturally our brains become accustomed to our environment so that anything that's not new or novel just blends in and we quickly forget about it. But what I've got are these awesome quote cards that came with my Uncovered Daily journal. This is not a sponsorship of any kind. I just really love this little extra that you get when you order their journal. It's a little block and a load of quote cards that you can change in and out each week. And I found this gives me a new outlook or focus for the week. It stops things just going stale and renews your motivation each week. As said, our brains crave novelty, so having a new quote each week feeds that appetite and allows you to approach each week with just a bit more energy. So next up is the more nerdy side of things, because it's great having inspirational quotes, but you need to know how much progress you're actually making towards your goals. So the next strategy is gather the data. Any performer in any domain needs to collect training or performance data. And it's not like you have to be completely data obsessed, but you need a clear set of objectives or markers just to indicate where you really are. And the psychological benefit of gathering the data is that the numbers don't lie. So when you're feeling down, disheartened, or that you've not made progress, you can just get out the relevant app or notebook and see that, oh right, I've put in those hundreds of reps or hundreds of hours on my craft, and my numbers aren't as bad as I thought. And this ties into the next neighboring strategy, which is to reflect on the data. There's no point in collecting it if you're not going to use it. So either at the end of each week or couple of weeks, spend half an hour going through your training or performance data, because you can use that to identify where there are still some limits to your game. And those then give you a clear, tangible focus for your performance intentions again. Because again, the numbers don't lie. It can also help with adjusting your goals or training plans if you see that you're not reaching targets or the level that you want, because it might be that you were overly optimistic in your initial goals that you had for yourself. I've had this before where I've set really ambitious running goals, and then a few weeks into a program, I see that I'm really struggling to hit certain paces. And this has allowed me to self-correct, to set more of an appropriate goal for the rest of the program, rather than pushing myself to a limit that will inevitably end up with injury, which has happened to me a couple of times in the past. And this idea of reflection is generally a key habit that any elite performer should look to develop. So alongside hard numeric data, you should also write a success journal. All this basically is spending 5 to 10 minutes at the end of each day writing out 3 wins of the day. And it doesn't matter what they are, it's just about looking for any form of progress. Because doing this creates a positive feedback loop, meaning that as you put some effort into something, you feel a sense of accomplishment at the progress you're making. And then because of that, you feel motivated to do the same thing the next day, and so on and so on. It also helps with those times where progress is a gradual and slow burn. There are no overnight successes. You have to grind the axe day in, day out. And without acknowledging those small steps each day that you're taking, It's very easy to get disheartened and just give up completely on a major goal or dream. But this little habit of seeing micro successes every single day just helps with sticking things out. And keeping this success journal also helps you build another key habit, which is the next strategy, self-coaching. This is about hacking the kinds of encouragement and support that we would give to others and start applying the same treatment to ourselves. Because it tends to be the norm that we're our own harshest critic when facing tough situations or opportunities. But when a teammate or friend is in a similar situation, we give them all the encouragement in the world. So self-coaching is about asking yourself questions to detach from yourself and look at yourself in the third person. So things like, what does Sam need to do to be successful in this moment? This creates a sense of self-distancing so that you can be more objective and helpful to yourself instead of falling into the trap of thinking things like, I can't do this or I can't do that. To perform optimally, you can't be too harsh or demanding on yourself. It's cliche, but if you don't believe in yourself, then who's going to? And to lower the demands placed upon yourself, a key thing to also use is the 80% rule. This is super important if you're someone who operates in many different performance domains or have lots of different projects that you need to keep on top of. And the idea is simple. Whenever something gets to an 80% satisfaction level, you just submit it or finish it and move on to the next thing. So think about things like college essays, assignments, a slide deck you need to create, or sending an important email. Adopting this 80% rule stops the cycle of perfectionism, which often leads to too much unnecessary stress and actual dips in performance. Because usually once something is at 80%, the effort and time required to get that last 20% is disproportionate, just not worth it. It rarely has a significant impact on outcomes. Obviously, there are occasional things that need to be perfect and are worth squeezing out more for that 100%. But most things in life are better to just keep at the 80% so that you can keep up momentum and overall consistency in your outputs. To also stop this perfectionism that you may feel about your performance domain, it's super important to engage in domain detachment. This is all about engaging in positive and rejuvenating activities the day or even just the afternoon or evening before a big performance or event. The key is to not do anything or even think of anything related to this event, whether it be a big cup final, big presentation, or job interview. Do things that occupy your mind and body, such as going for long walks, reading, taking a relaxing bath, playing some guilt-free video games, whatever. The reason for this is because it allows you to detach from that pressure that has been building up and not cause you to blow all your physical and mental energy before you actually have to perform. Think of it this way. The day before your performance, you're like a parked car. You can't go anywhere because it's not yet time to drive. But if you start getting consumed by the pressure of a big performance, you start revving the engine in anticipation. And the more you rev the engine, the more fuel you end up using up. But that fuel is wasted because you're still stationary. The car isn't moving because it's not yet time to go. So domain detachment simply helps with conserving your mental and physical energy for when it truly matters. However, sometimes this detachment can become more about avoidance of the training or hard work that you actually have to do. There are times where you really procrastinate and put off the workout, recovery session, or whatever project that you're working on. In those situations, it's important to use the next strategy. What's my minimum? This is about asking that exact question and deliberately answering with a small enough answer so that you can just get started. So if you're supposed to do a gym session, you can decide that your minimum is the first set of the 3 that you're scheduled to do. Or it may be that you have to write a 1,500 word essay, and so you set the minimum of 150 words or just writing the introduction. The power of this is that it just pushes through that resistance that we all have when kicking something off. And 9 times out of 10, once we've started, we will just keep going. If you've done the first set, the second set will just easily follow. And once you hit that 150 words, that quickly doubles to 300. Just starting creates a snowball effect, so use this question as the first snowflake. Sometimes though, in order to make that start, we need a clear vision of what we're actually working towards. So the next strategy is visualization. For a full beginner's guide on this, you should watch the video at the top. But honestly, the best performers we all admire have made this a consistent practice. In the most simplest form, all it involves is sitting in a quiet room and running through all future possibilities. It's about imagining what you want to happen and also map out how you would go about doing so. You want to build out a mental script of how you will cope with the most pressurized moments in your performance domain, whether that's taking the final shot in the cup final, or even just how to respond when performing in a stadium full of people for the first time. Your brain cannot with 100% accuracy differentiate between real and fake memories. So it's about conditioning it into believing that you've been in a situation hundreds of times before and executed on that moment, so that when it surfaces in real life, you just follow that mental script and execute. To convince yourself further of your ability to thrive during the toughest moments and challenges, you also must use facilitative self-talk. This is task-related speech that is not vague, general stuff like, I can do this. No, it's more about giving your brain a clear instruction so that you can execute the task at hand. Sometimes this can be about grounding yourself to not get carried away. For example, a tennis player I worked with early in the year would repeat to herself focus in between points during tiebreakers. Or it can be cue words to facilitate a routine like catch, drop, tap for an American football punter I've worked with. The purpose is to quiet the noise in your head and just direct all your attention to your intentions. There will be times though that things don't go according to plan or exactly how you intended them to play out. Mistakes are inevitable and even the very elite make them. But those guys and girls are incredibly skilled at very quickly moving on from such mistakes. Why? Because they use reset buttons. This is any act that symbolizes the need to move on from a mistake and retune your focus back to the present moment. These become a trigger so that you no longer stay in the past, which is where the mistake or error is. For football players, this can be retying your shorts after missing the target with an easy shot. Or if you're a volleyball player, this could be quickly readjusting your knee pads. To facilitate the impact of this reset, you can also use a simple mantra such as next one or move on, so that again, you condition your brain to stop the cycle of self-sabotage that can come with making basic errors or mistakes. To also not be fazed by making mistakes or errors during the big moment, one of the best things you can do is just simply experience the big moment before. And that's why the next strategy is pressure desensitization. The only way to remain 100% calm under pressure is to have experienced that pressure countless times before. You need to train your body and mind to perform under extreme stress, whether that be severe time constraints or the presence of a hostile crowd. The best example of this in action is when military personnel around the world will dunk a fake helicopter body into a swimming pool to simulate helicopter crashes and to train cadets to escape underwater scenarios. The first time anyone tries this, they almost drown because it's such a foreign and stressful experience. But after a few times of getting dunked in the pool, they calmly run through the necessary set of steps to successfully escape. That only comes through mirroring the real life situation as much as possible. You cannot become a master of handling pressure just by reading about what to do in certain situations. You have to experience them. Regulating your stress response is generally such a key thing to be able to perform with optimal mental clarity. And so another easy but effective strategy to use to achieve this would be box breathing. It's super straightforward. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and hold again for 4 seconds before then repeating that cycle over and over. What this does is help enhance mental performance by promoting relaxation, reducing stress, and improving focus through controlling your breathing and increasing oxygen intake. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, leading to a calmer state of mind and improved cognitive function. It's a fantastic tool to use right before big performances or even just to start your day off if you're a bit stressed or worried about what you have to achieve that day. A lot of that stress and worry is often legitimate because you're probably a person who's always trying to improve beyond your existing capabilities. And this naturally causes a bit of overwhelm. So another simple strategy is to add yets. This is very much at the core of having a growth mindset where you fully believe that your intelligence, your abilities, and skills can improve with practice and effort. But there will be frustrating times where you just can't execute a certain skill routine or hit a certain pace or lift a certain amount of weight, etc. And the temptation in those moments is to just say, I can't do it. But the words we use are crucial in shaping our overall perception of ourselves and can place severe limitations on our future efforts. So whenever you have one of those moments, you should add on a yet. So I can't do this yet, or I haven't been able to run that fast yet. This subtle addition keeps open that door of opportunity and possibility, which your subconscious will take note of and stop you from giving up completely. It's often the case that those who make it to the top only did so because they were the ones that failed to give up. They kept yet at the back of their mind to push through and persist. Pushing through that self-doubt and frustration can be difficult though, because at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have insecurities and vulnerabilities. But what the very elite also do is convince themselves that they're limitless. And they do this by developing an alter ego. Again, this is something that needs a comprehensive explanation, so watch my previous video on this. It's all your best traits on steroids. It's your most confident and assured self. Kobe Bryant's alter ego of Black Mamba was perhaps the most famous example that we've ever seen. The idea is to create a clear picture of this second self that you can embody during the toughest moments. You're like a superhero getting into costume and becoming fearless. Nothing phases you, and all the things that make you human are left behind for a few hours. Creating and embodying this alter ego will enable you to be your most unapologetic, most dominant self, so that you can perform optimally with no fear whatsoever. Aside from creating an image of this optimal version of yourself, what a lot of elite performers also do is build out a clear image of their enemy. Because sometimes to get the best out of yourself, you need to get a bit angry and aggressive. So you want to form a clear picture of the person that riles you up most. This is someone who is a combination of all the coaches, teammates, colleagues, and even friends or family who doubted you. It's everyone who ever said that you weren't good enough or that you couldn't make it. Form a clear picture in your mind of what they look like, and give them a name. So the next time you feel frustrated at yourself, you can think of your enemy. Think about how complaining or quitting will prove them right. And this should be enough motivation to practice or perform with a new intensity to shut them up. Because that angry energy can often lead to elevated levels in effort, drive, and ultimately performance. But look, you don't want to use this one on a daily basis. No one should walk around with a chip on their shoulder 100% of the time. So the last strategy to think about is using laughter. At the end of the day, pursuing your absolute best is serious business, but this can fall into a spiral of stuff that is quite simply not fun. But what you see time and time again is that elite performers know how to cut the tension of pursuing excellence with just a good laugh. They're jokers at heart. They enjoy messing around and remember to make smiling a priority. Laughter positively influences mental performance by triggering the release of endorphins, which act as natural mood elevators, promoting a sense of well-being and reducing your stress. A good laugh helps you get through that grueling workout or makes that big moment seem a little less scary. So remember to smile and enjoy your journey towards peak performance. Right, so that's your toolbox of mental strategies. You now have everything that you need to mentally dominate any domain. But the hard work starts now in putting them into practice. So let me know what 3 tools you're going to start applying today in the comments below. And also remember to sign up for the free cheat sheet, which summarizes every tool that we've run through today. This honestly is going to put you ahead of 99% of performers. There is one other thing that will help achieve this too, so check out this next video here to become a top 1% performer.